Welcome back, golf fans. Chris here with Jagerbombs Fantasy Sports to bring you a weekly PGA fantasy and betting preview. This week is brought to you by Fanshare Sports. Riding solo tonight in the first one of the year, but I wanted to let you guys know that this year's show is going to be a little bit different. So this is what we're going to be doing. We're going to start. Me and Dane are going to review last week's process, our player pools, and our results across the betting markets and DFS. We're also going to preview the current event, looking at the field, the course, stats model, early look at weather on Tuesdays here as well. We're going to discuss 2 to 3 core plays each. New this year, we're going to be adding a section where we're going to be going over our members' questions, whether it be asked in chat, DM, on social media, wherever it may be. If we've got questions, we're going to be covering it, have a little section on the show where we go over that. Whether it also could be strategy, bankroll management, statistical breakdowns, that sort of thing. So make sure to check that out. And then finally, we're going to be doing a weekly giveaway. We're giving away a free sheet each and every week. And if you're already a member of the PGA or All Sports package for Jagerbombs Fantasy Sports, you get chosen as the winner that week, you're going to get rewarded with Jaeger points, and when those add up, it's going to equal cash value for you as well. So hit me up in DM. We're going to be talking about this a little bit more as we're going forward, but make sure to stay tuned to the end of the show here, and I'll tell you how you can go ahead and enter into that for this week. All right. So weekly sponsor this week, like I said, we've got Fanshare Sports on board. I've done a video in the past looking at the tutorial, how to use it a little bit. But what I wanted to do here, they are sponsoring the show here for us this week. They're a multi-purpose site where you can find event-specific content from all around the industry, all in one place. What they also do is they aggregate that content, providing tag counts, sentiment ratings, and ownership projections for every player. As you can see here, DFS ownership trends, DraftKings ownership projections, historical trends, salaries, official world golf rankings, odds. They've got a lineup generator. That is in the tutorial video. Make sure to go back on my channel and check that out as well. And if you're new to Fanshare, make sure to use promo code Jaeger to get 20% off your subscription. There's also a link in the description of the video, and it will be pinned to the comment section as well. All right, so let's move on into the review of last week. Pretty good start to the season at the Tournament of Champions. I had Cam Smith for first round leader as well as an outright bet this week. So that worked out really well, 20-1 and 22-1 on those two bets. So that was kind of what got my week started. That was the highlight of my week. For DFS, we discussed a little bit. I discussed a little bit on last week's video, going with a little bit different of a strategy this year, kind of building like a 20 max with the core plays. Some of them that I will discuss a little bit later in the show, and then adjusting the exposures on the optimizer, and then kind of going that route. And then closer to Wednesday night, I go ahead and look at ownership projections a little bit more, try and make some pivots, and then build another 20 max off of that, and then kind of compare. I ended up in for, I think it was 40 and down. I took home 27. So down $13 at the end of last week in terms of DraftKings using that strategy. So that wasn't that great. Like I said, I made up for it on Prize Picks as well as the betting market there. So I will be back at it this week. I'm going to be adjusting a few more things in terms of my exposures. I didn't have enough Cam Smith, obviously. Last week, I did like him. He was 5th in my rankings, but I didn't have enough exposure in there, so I wasn't able to take advantage on those lineups where I had Cam Smith or even John Rahm in there. So we'll be adjusting that this week, and I will be probably doing another shorter video, probably over on TikTok, looking at my quick strategy going through the optimizer using Fanshare Sports here as well. So moving on to the next section, we had a great question this past week, kind of what someone that watched my video last week and wanted to know a little bit more on why we use strokes gain stats. What are strokes gain stats? Someone that was fairly new to PGA in terms of the advanced statistics and putting models together and stuff. So I just wanted to kind of go over that just a little bit here before we get going. I'm going to bring the sheet up. Just give me a second. So over on the sheet, you're going to find the strokes gain stats. It's in the green section. It is the first set of stats that's up here. You've got strokes gain total, strokes gain tee to green, off the tee approach, ball striking, and around the green. And then we've got putting. So So first of all, this is pulled right from the PGA Tour website where they describe it, and strokes gain is a better method of measuring performance because it compares a player's performance to the rest of the field, and because it can isolate individual aspects of the game. So for instance, greens in regulation just tells you the percentage of the time that the player hits the green in regulation, meaning they will have a shot for birdie or better. Whereas strokes gain approach takes into account where the approach shot is coming from. It gives every player a baseline from a certain distance, and then it kind of calculates from how close that player got to the pin, not just hitting the green, but how close he got to the pin as well, to how many strokes he gained on the field from that certain distance. And it does that from all over the course, whether it be off the tee, whether it be on approach, whether it be around the green, or whether it be putting, which that's the big one that I like looking at is strokes gained putting, simply because putts per green just tell you how many putts on average a player takes per green. It does not tell you that he only took 8 of those putts were within 3 feet, or 10 of those putts were outside of 15 feet. So a player that's making a lot of 12 to 15 foot or longer putts, sinking those is obviously gaining a lot more players on the field, but your regular putts per green does not tell you that, because all putts are created or recorded or tallied the same. So that's where strokes gain comes in. So that's what I look at over here in the sheet. So strokes gain total is a combination of absolutely everything. Strokes gain tee to green is everything but putting. So off the tee, approach, and around the green. And then strokes gain approach and off the tee combined is ball striking. So that's something that we look at a lot and concentrate a lot on. There's one of my key stats here this week as well. Around the green is very similar to scrambling, but again, it just goes a little bit more complex into giving players a baseline depending on how far away from the green they are, whether they're in the rough, whether they're in the sand. That all is factored in as well. So then also on the sheet, I've not only got strokes gain putting overall, but I've got strokes gain putting on Bermuda grass, because we've got the 3 main grasses that we got: Bermuda, we got Bent, and we got Poa. We see a lot of Bermuda at this time of the year. So that's what we'll be looking at here this week. So that kind of goes over the strokes gain stuff. If you got more questions on that, definitely reach out to me in DM or leave a comment. And if you have anything that you want me to cover in future shows, Dane to cover in future shows, make sure to either reach out to us in DM, post it in the PGA chat, or comment in this video, and I will be sure to write it down and include it in one of our upcoming shows 100% for you guys. All right, so let's move into the tournament here. We got the Sony Open this week. It's the first full field event of the season, a little bit different from last year. Let's have a look at the course here. So, or a little bit different than last week, not last year. So we got a par 70 this week. It was a par 73 last week. Last week we saw very wide fairways, very big greens. This week we've got tight fairways with, I think, 6 to 7 dog legs in there. So it's going to make positioning off the tee much more important than distance. So we do see, when we start looking at the course history, a lot of shorter placement type hitters and not a lot of bombers up there. It's kind of an old school type course. Kevin Kistner always talks about it being an old school course. That's why he does well here. It's a ball striker's course for sure. Very beautiful. Like I said, tight fairways. The greens are about average size, right around 6,500 square feet. Still on Bermuda grass, like I said earlier. And then because it's a par 70, if we go back and look at the course here, we've only got 2 par 5s on this course. And then 5 of the par 4s are 450 plus yards, and 5 of them fall between 400 and 450 yards. But on Fantasy National, when we start breaking down the approach shot distances, the ones that I am looking at in my model this week are proximity from 150 to 175 and proximity from 175 to 200. And like I said, ball striking is very key for me. So I've got 35% on that right here, 25% dedicated to approach, 10 on off the tee, and then that little bit of a bonus in there for those proximity distances. Putting on Bermuda, I wanted a little bit on there. Par 4 scoring, strokes gained approach, and birdie or better percentage are my 3 main stats this week. Obviously par 4, because there is only 2 par 5s. So that's where the players are going to be able to separate themselves. All right, so moving on to the weather, which can play a big factor. If we go look at the course history here, 2 years ago when Cam Smith won this event, he won it in a playoff against Brendan Steele at -11, while almost every other year in here is reaching around that -20 mark, -17 from Patton Kazire in 2018. But generally, we're seeing an average score of around -20 here. That year was very, very windy, especially the first 2 rounds. So we saw some lower scoring. So weather is definitely a factor. But when we look at it this week, We had some wind. It looks like it's a little bit higher wind on Tuesday and Wednesday, but going into this event, this is as of Tuesday night recording this, Thursday looks like the worst day, and it's only peaking about 12 mile an hour in middle of the day. Friday looks fine. Saturday and Sunday both look fine as well. You're looking at about 2 to 8 mile an hour winds, sometimes gusts of a little bit more. That is birdie weather for me. So I think we're going to see a winning score once again around that minus 18 to minus 22. Nothing like the minus 30s like we seen last week. But we are going to see some low scoring here. So let's dig into it a little bit more, talk about a few core plays that I like here this week. We will start near the top. Looking at the model, Cam Smith is definitely number one in the model coming off a win. But at that price, I like getting a little bit of a discount here with Webb Simpson. He is number 3 in my model. He returns to this course with amazing course history. And as we know, he's kind of a player that does well on these positional courses, these ball striking courses, where you can also catch a hot putter on the weekend and really push yourself up. He's got top 5s in 3 straight trips here to Walleye, and 13th or better in 6 straight. And he's made the cut here, I believe, 12 times he's been here, all 12 times. So he's got a really safe floor. He's got a ton of upside. And if we go look at his form coming in using Fantasy National Golf Club here, the RSM Classic, he gained a whopping 9.8 strokes on approach. That was awesome to see going into completing the fall season, going into the winter break. So T14 and a T8 to wrap up the fall season here. So he's coming in with form. He's got excellent course history, best in the field. And if we go look at the stat ranks here real quick and how he fits in the stats model, he is actually only 24th in ball striking, which is a bit surprising, but he struggled off the tee mostly. As you can tell there, he's 54th off the tee, 17th on approach, really good around the green. That putting rankings don't really do justice of just how good of putter he is. Moving over, we look at that rough proximity. So one thing we do see here, if we go look at the player stats over the last 5 years and look at the averages, only hitting about 62% of fairways. Last year, they only hit about 60% of fairways, which is crazy to think that they hit more fairways the year it was really windy than last year. But if they're low on hitting any of these courses where we see 50 to 60% driving accuracy, I start looking at rough proximity because, a lot of these approach shots are going to be coming from the rough, especially when you start looking at the driving accuracy of these top guys. The top 3 and 4 of the top 5 were all under 60% in terms of driving accuracy, but all up there in terms of greens and regulation. That tells me they're hitting a lot of approach shots from the rough. So rough proximity definitely stands out. And that is where another spot where Webb definitely stands out is that rough proximity. He's 5th in this field. He's 1st in par 4 scoring and 4th in birdie or better percentage. So he's number 3 in the model here. It's really just that he's top 10 in every single category here, but Cam Smith being 1st in almost every single category is the only thing that really keeps him back here. And then moving on, go north of the border with Cory Connors, with a Canadian here. If we're talking ball striking, we have to talk Cory Connors. Since the beginning of last year, he leads this field. He leads all of golf in ball striking. Absolutely amazing. He comes in with excellent form here as well. He's got top 25s in 5 of his last 6 events. Not a whole bunch of upside here recently, but those top 25s at that price, that is, if you're building a cash lineup and you don't quite want to get up to Webb and play the stars and scrubs game, Cory Connors is by far my favorite place to start if you're building maybe a little bit more of a balanced. It doesn't have to be just for cash. It can be single entry. It can be even a GPP 20 max build where you're kind of eliminating that stars and scrubs build. Cory Connors is an excellent place to start at 9,600 on DraftKings and 11,000 on FanDuel. He's only got better here every year he's came. T39 in 2018, T3 in 2019, and T12 in 2020. He did not come here last year. So again, he comes with course history, form. He's number 1 in ball striking in the field. He's number 4 on my sheet here. But if you go back and look at the Fantasy Nationals, kind of where I pulled that from. So top in ball striking, number 1 in good drive percentage. And that kind of correlates a little bit with your rough proximity because good drive percentage takes into account your greens in regulation, plus your greens in regulation when you miss the fairway, fairways hit, driving accuracy, plus the greens in regulation when you miss the fairway in there. So that good drive percentage and rough proximity are something I look at again at these courses where guys are going to be only hitting 55, 60% of the fairways. As long as they can get it to the green from the rough, I'm not worried about that at all. So Cory Connors fits that as well. He's 4th in par 4 scoring and 11th in birdie or better percentage. So he's number 1 in round 1 scoring. So he might be one we want to look at for a first round leader type bet. Definitely be looking at that. I will also probably be sprinkling in a 25-1 outright bet, as well as a top 10 or a top 5, just to do like an each way on that as well. Going down a little bit further, we got Russell Henley. He's really popping in the model this week. He's number 6 overall in my model, coming off a T11 here last year. So in terms of course history, he doesn't have the same consistency as some of these other guys. As you can see, it's been very up and down, but he does have a win back in 2013 and 4 top 20 finishes in there. So he's shown a lot of upside. What I do like is he's coming in with nice form here into this year's event. He's got top 25s in 4 of his last 5, and at 8,500, pairing him with Connors is a nice balanced approach. That's kind of where I really like going in terms of my cash lineup this week, is these green guys. If you can get Webb in there comfortably and not have to worry about, forcing in a couple of guys under the 7K range, I think you're fine. But the safer route, I think, is going with like a Henley Connors combo. In terms of statistical rankings for Henley, he's 5th, 2nd in approach, 5th in ball striking. He slide over here. He's 10th in proximity, 15th in good drive percentage, 15th in rough proximity. So he's got all of that covered. 10th in par 4 scoring, and 15th in birdie or better percentage. So he covers the stats model. He covers the form. He does have upside with the course history, maybe not as solid as the other 2 guys before him that I talked about, but it's definitely there. Now, if you want to talk course history, Charles Howell with the next pick here is definitely where you want to go for course history if you're on that narrative this week, because if you just look at that, it's a thing of beauty, really. 10 straight made cuts here. He's got top 10s in 5 of those, and no finish worse than a T32. He usually comes a little bit cheaper, but still $8K on DraftKings, $9,400 on FanDuel is underpriced. Something I do look at for value in these full field events is the DraftKings odds to pricing differential, and the FanDuel pricing to odds differential, which really just looks at the ranking, where they stand in terms of outright betting market, as well as the DraftKings and FanDuel pricing. And Howell is one that really stands out on FanDuel at 9,400. He's a plus 13. That's one of the highest in the field in terms of looking at that odds to FanDuel pricing. And like I said, he's got elite course history. And of these guys kind of in this range, let's include Brendan Steele, Chris Kirk, Ryan Palmer. Out of that group of 4 guys that have good course history, we'll call them veterans as well, all in the same price range, is very interesting for their pricing model this week. And of those guys, I think Howell's going to be probably the most popular, simply because of that long stretch of consistency here at Walleye, as well as he's kind of got the best form coming in, the most consistent form coming into this one as well. So he would be my favorite in this range. Most definitely. The stats model, he's not really going to stand out there. He's 106 in the approach. And if we go look at just recent form here, look at the RSM Classic. He finished T16. The approach was still off a bit, but he was really good everywhere else in that one. Mayakoba, we don't have the strokes gained data there, but he did gain 2.2 total. T33 is fine. I think we could take that this week. That's kind of like a floor that we're looking for. Before that, it was real shaky. So we're kind of hoping here, if you're going with Howell, that he's going to carry that over from the fall, that little bit of ball striking that he's found off the tee, the putting in around the green. And if he can get going a little bit, even, 0.5 to 1 strokes gain for the whole event on approach, while keeping that kind of off the tee game that we know he has and around the green and putting, I think he is looking for another top 20 at this event. Most definitely. Up next would be Joel Damon, coming off a week. Last week, it was kind of disappointing for him, which, like I said in my DFSR article this week, is kind of hilarious considering that he shot minus 15. It was not really a bad week. It's just the winner shot minus 35. So looking at him again here this week, he's number 8 in my model. He covers the form outside of last week, but still, he shot minus 15. I'm not going to consider that to be bad form by any means. And then before that, we had the RSM Classic. Struggled a little bit with the approach and around the green, but his putter was off the wall, which is awesome to see, as well as off the tee. Houston Open before that, he picked up a T5 with some elite ball striking and above average putting as well. So I'm just kind of looking for, he provides us a really nice floor, first of all, at his price, $7,600, $9,500 over on FanDuel. And like Cory Connors, he's played here 3 times. He missed the cut in his first trip, T73. Cory Connors didn't miss the cut in his first trip, but it was a little bit down for him in his first trip. And then second trip, T22 in 2019. Then 2020, he had a T12. That would be awesome. Upside for him anywhere in either of those final 2. So I think kind of like a T25, top 25 is kind of what we're looking for from a floor from him. He kind of covers all the areas that we are looking at. Over on the stats side of things, 15th in strokes gained, ball striking, and 23rd approach, 24th off the tee. He's 8th in proximity, 3rd in proximity from the rough, so that's really good to see there. Backs that up. 21st in par 4 scoring and 8th in birdie or better percentage. So he really stands out in the stats model as well. And then my favorite value play this week, ranked number 13th in my model, is KH Lee. He is the highest ranked in my model of any player, well, below Joel Damon, in that 7,500 and below range. So that's the first thing that stood out. 64, the official world golf ranking to pricing, that stood out. The FanDuel and DraftKings to odds differential, +9 and +11 stood out. He finished T19 here last year in his first trip. This is usually an event where guys aren't doing so great on their first one. These positional courses, guys make their first trip here. They kind of got to feel out where they're going to be going. Your point A to point B type golf. Find out those areas. But he came out and got a T19 last year, which was I think he was like 64, 6,500. I think he was in the optimal lineup. I'm not 100% on that. But then just looking at the form coming in, T33, T18, T25, T14, missed cut, T12, T47, T24, T54, T6. He just makes cuts over and over and over again. He makes cuts, and he shows top 25 upside, top 20, and even top 10 upside in here. He had a 6th at 3M Open. I think that's kind of stretching if you're looking for a top 10 out of him this week, but he makes a nice top 20 bet. He's my favorite value play in DFS. He even covers a little bit in terms of the stats here. We'll go look at that. The approach shot, he's been coming in. He's been fairly solid with the putter here recently. Last week wasn't great. He lost 2.6 strokes putting. He lost strokes around the green. He lost strokes on approach. So he needs to bounce back for sure, but that's just too cheap for a player who came into that event. So maybe that was a little bit of a warm-up for him. We can get back to that top 25 for him. I think he can easily make the cut this week, so I'm not worried about that. So I will be using him in cash games as well. All right, so that kind of covers that. Now, if I go into the FanShare Pro here, just let me log in real quick. So what I'm going to do in my first 20 max this week, and I'm going to do another, like I said, another shorter video looking at this. I'm just coming in and sorting by DraftKings price, going off my sheet, taking my core that I provide on the sheet, and then I am just starring these players that are on my sheet. Clicking them wrong here. I will do this in the later video. And then what I'm doing is going to build. And then after I build and run my lineups, what I'm going to do is just start adjusting the exposures to go along with how I want my exposures to be. Obviously, they're not going to be 100%. I'm going to have to make some adjustments to my rankings just because of the pricing and how it all fits together. But stay tuned for that as well. And to finish things off here, all you have to do to get in the contest to win the free sheet this week or to grab some Jaeger points is just comment with your favorite play this week or something that you want to see covered in future shows, and you are entered to win. I will do the random draw once, let's say Sunday night once. It'll be Sunday night this week because we are still in Hawaii. I will make that draw, and I will announce that on Monday when I do my short TikTok preview show. Thanks for watching, everyone. I appreciate it. If you want to get full access to the sheet, you can head over to patreon.com/JagerBombs for $10 a month. You get access to the sheet. You get access to our Discord channel, multiple coaches. We've got rankings. We've got separate threads. I'm going to go over and just kind of show you that here. I have a thread open each and every week in our Discord chat, looking at weather, looking at the field, looking at the course, flyovers, odds, any information I pull from my sheet, player quotes, tee times, all the other videos and content that we provide as well. We've also got a one and done this year. So if anyone wants to get in the one and done, we've got until Wednesday night, tomorrow night, to get in. It's $50 for the season. We're paying out the top 3 as well as the scorer who gets the most money over the course of the 4 majors. So make sure if you want to get into that, make sure to reach out to us. And if you want to get a free trial, come in and try us out. click that Discord link in the description. I will also pin that to the video as well, and you can get into our Discord chat for free and get some limited content, access to our coaches, as well as some of our members to kind of give you some feedback on what they like about Jaeger Bombs Fantasy Sports. Thanks for watching the video. Good luck this week, everyone.